Hello and welcome to the Easy Peasy Music Theory course for kids. I'm Miss Christine. We have more learning to do, so let's get to our next lesson. All right, welcome to lesson 9, line notes on the bass clef. All right, line notes on the bass clef. So let's get to it. Well, what is the name of this clef? You should remember we just practiced drawing this clef. That's right, it is the bass clef. Good job. All right, so now let's learn a little bit more. Now, in order to read and write music, and if we're using the bass clef, right, there's a couple of things that we need, and you should remember from the previous lesson, what do we need to read and write music? Well, the first thing we're going to need is the music staff. How many lines and spaces does a music staff have? That's right, 5 lines, 4 spaces, right? And we need a clef, and in this case, we're talking about the bass clef, right? And what else do we need? Oh, that's right, we're gonna need some notes, right? Good job. So now we're gonna put all of this together, almost like a little puzzle, and really start to learn more about the bass clef. So what are music notes? Well, music notes are symbols right here. Here's a little note that represent pitch, okay? And below here is a note on the staff, all right? So let's move along. Now, just in case you might have forgotten, we assign every note a letter in the music alphabet, and you should remember the music alphabet. If not, I'm going to send you back to that lesson, okay? So here's our music alphabet, and every note has a special letter that is a part of the music alphabet. All right, so let's move along. Now, note names. Here we go. We're talking about note names, so pay very close attention. The name of the note depends on the clef. And we have what kind of clef? The bass clef. That's right. And each clef has its own set of rules. Remember how we talked about it kind of drives us home or tells us what to do, what to sing? That is what this beautiful bass clef is going to tell us. And so let's learn some more about the bass clef, right? So far, you already know you need a staff, you need notes, and you need a clef. And we're talking about that bass clef. So let's learn all about line notes of the bass clef. All right, so notes are placed on the line, right? Remember how we talked about line notes? The line has to go through the note. So here is our bass clef, and here are our line notes, all right? Now let's dive a little deeper. You remember line notes, right? Here's our line note. This is a line note. How do we know it's a line note? Because the line is going through the note, all right? But how do we figure this all out with the bass clef? I mean, this is a brand new clef. I mean, how will I know what note is what? Well, we have something special to tell you. Now, here is our bass clef. Here are our line notes. Notice that the notes are ascending, meaning they're going up the staff. And you have to remember that when you see the line notes on the bass clef, the little secret or sentence that will help you to remember is good boys do fine always. So let me say that one more time. When you get to your bass clef, the line notes in the bass clef are good, G for good, B for boy, D for do, F for fine, A for always, okay? So those are our line notes in the bass clef, all right? And you can make up your own sentence. I like to remember good boys do fine always. You can come up with your own sentence as long as you remember G, B, D, F, and A. All right, so now let's learn a little bit more about the line notes in the bass clef. Now, oh, that's right. You remember I told you it's called the bass clef or the F clef, and I told you I would let you know why we call it the F clef. Well, as you can see, we have a red line here, right? And it's on the 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth line. And the reason why we call the bass clef the F clef is because these little dots, right? Remember when we practiced drawing our bass clef, you have a dot below the fourth line and a dot above the fourth line. And so the bass clef gets its name from that fourth line being the F line because it's good boys do fine, so that F line, and that's how we call it the F clef. All right, now let's take all this information that I just gave you and let's see if you can remember the line notes in the bass clef. All right, so what were the line notes of the bass clef? We had good boys do fine always. So let's see if you can put it all together. The first line is G for good. So we're going to put a G right there.
Yeah, baby.
All right.
Yeah.
Good job. Yeah, baby. And the second line, we have G for good. B for boy. Good boys, right? All right, cha-ching. And the third line is, well, let me take my time here because it's okay if you just don't have it all memorized. That's okay. So you just go back to that sentence. Good boys do. So that would be D, that line. That third line has to be D. Absolutely correct. And now we're at the fourth line, and you should probably know already that this bass clef is also known as the F clef. And so this fourth line has to be what? F. Good boys do fine. Yahoo! Good job. And now we're up at that fifth line. And what do you think it would be? If you forget, just remember your sentence for the bass clef. Good boys do fine always. So that is note A because we're dealing with the line notes. Yippee! Of the bass clef. All right, let's move along. All right, let's move along. All right, so what did you learn? Oh my goodness, you learned quite a bit, right? We talked about the bass clef, but not just talked about the bass clef, we talked about the line notes of the bass clef. But what are those line notes? Well, we have good, G for good, B for boy, D for does, F for fine, A for always. Okay, so those are the line notes of the bass clef. And why do we call it the F clef? Oh, if you remember those two dots, right? They are right around that fourth line, and that's why we call it the F clef. All right, so let's talk about the homework. So what's for homework? Well, you betcha you have to get in line, and your job is to find those line notes, okay? And name them. What are the line notes of the bass clef? Good boys do fine always. So I want you to work on your assignment, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye for now.